Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, President of Performance Strategies and Diane Bogino Development. Our guest today is Nadia Bilchik. Nadia Bilchik is a global speaker, author, television personality, and communications consultant. She has had an extraordinary career ranging from hosting a weekend segment on CNN to a money show on CNN International. Nadia's unique approach to her speaking and training comes from interviewing world-renowned figures and celebrities. Nadia has interviewed Nelson Mandela, Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, and George Clooney. Some of her clients include Coca-Cola, the Home Depot, Samsung, Porsche, and numerous others. Nadia, thank you so much for being on the show. I am thrilled to have you. Welcome to Business Notes.
Well, Diane, it is always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Let's dive in because you have already had such an interesting career. So tell our viewers what you're doing today.
Well, I have morphed from 3 decades either in front of or behind a television camera for CNN and then Mnet Television in South Africa to teaching people how to deal with their webcams. And Diane, it's not as easy as we think. And I keep saying to people, yes, I'm used to being in front of a television camera, and you may not be in front of a television camera, but everybody right now needs to be in front of their webcam. And the question is, how well are you doing it? So since mid-March, I've been working with physicians, with pharma reps, with managers, with employees, with anybody who has to show up in the virtual space in a meeting, and just helping them navigate how do you come across well virtually. And, because we don't have the organic exposure that we would if we were in the office, so many people miss out on that opportunity. So that's what I've been doing, half days, full days, keynotes, all around your virtual impact.
So what has your years as a journalist taught you?
It's taught me to just be curious. And it's interesting because Diane, you are a master yourself. As a coach and facilitator, being interested in others is such a foundational skill, isn't it? And it's taught me, even in my virtual space coaching, to teach people how to really listen to others, to be curious. And one of my favorite things that journalism has taught me is if you're interviewing somebody and you really are not that familiar and you're suddenly on the spot and you have to interview somebody, we all have 3 phases of our lives. We all have a past, a present, and a future. So in the same way that you can interview someone based on their past, where did you grow up? What were your influences? On their current reality, what are you doing? And on their future, you can have a conversation with someone in the same way. And part of what I'm teaching in the virtual world is to engage people, because it's not a natural engagement. So how do you really engage and get to know the person on the other side of the screen?
That's right. It's an art, isn't it?
So I think, and something, you're so good at this, but it just takes taking yourself off autopilot. It's not immediate. So we have to just be conscious and we have to be aware. And I think the word is deliberate. So as a journalist, I am naturally curious. And sometimes we forget in the virtual space to be deliberately curious and to make other people feel included and involved, because it's not something that happens automatically.
Yes. What do you think the biggest mistake is that people make in virtual communication?
Is thinking that you can just turn a camera on and show up. And it's not true. You have to have a couple of things. And I actually prepared a slide for you, Diane. So it goes like this. I'll tell you, these are the things that people need to do in a virtual world that really help. So for those of you who are watching, and I know sometimes you have listeners, so these are the things. People don't look into the camera. So you and I right now, because you are so skilled at doing this, are looking mid-eye line into the camera. But that's counterintuitive, isn't it? Because what do I want to do? I want to look down at Diane on my screen. But if I look down at you, I'm not looking at our audience. And eye contact is the single most important thing that you can do, because it's synonymous with really connecting with someone in person and making eye contact. And I see this time and time and time again. I recently posted Candace Bergen was doing an interview on, I think it's CBS Sunday Morning. And the camera was so close to her face, but she wasn't looking into the camera. Now, as I mentioned in my video, it doesn't impact her career at all. But for you as an entrepreneur in corporate America, whatever you're doing, you not looking your best in front of a camera can be distracting. And at this point, we're 9 months into having to virtually communicate. So please, I ask everybody, master eye contact directly to the camera. And then lighting. Both you and I have our lights in front of us. And that's so important because so often I see people with this beautiful window behind them, then they look like a cardboard cutout. Diane, I say they look like they're in the witness protection program. And then your background. So I've chosen to have my studio background because I like to say I'm in a studio, Nadia Bilchik TV, so it's part of my persona, my brand. You have this beautiful background of your study, your office. It looks clean, it looks neat, it looks interesting enough, but not distracting. So my thing is you want to be credible, not incredible. So how do you have a background that reflects your persona or the situation? I've got some backgrounds that are now holiday backgrounds or different themes, or, you know, in Thanksgiving, I had a Thanksgiving background. That's fine, but just make sure that it doesn't distract from your overall message.
Thank you so much for that information. And they're not even being charged for this. But you do have the Nadia Bilchik Digital Academy. So tell us what that's about.
So Diane, like many speakers, trainers, facilitators, you being one of the best, when March happened, I literally had 3 keynotes that week that were canceled: Las Vegas, Los Cabos, Los Angeles. I was going to 3 different places to do in-person big keynotes. Well, the pandemic hit us all, and those were all postponed. So I very quickly thought, what do I do as a professional speaker, as a communicator, to take my business online? And I know for many, many people who are joining us today that you've had to pivot, you've had to redirect. So what I created was a digital academy where some of my offerings are available online. And I'm very excited that I created an online offering in the Digital Academy called Webcam Confidence. And it's 6 or 7 modules, and it really takes you through what is deep confidence. So the first thing we look at is just confidence, because confidence is such a big part of adapting to this new space. And then I go into what lighting do you need and give you a plethora of ideas for lighting, backgrounds, what camera you should use, and just created an online academy where people can do what we call asynchronous learning, which I know you're very familiar with, which is student-led. So you can go onto the Nadia Bilchik Digital Academy and you can do the program on your own. And what I've incorporated in that is then people get a coaching session with me. So once they've gone through it, they can then book time, and I will go through and look at their camera shots and just look at the way they're communicating and are you coming across as the best version of yourself. And then I also, on the Digital Academy, I have Own Your Network, which is a program that I have been doing for the last 20 years, but what I did was updated it and put it on the Digital Academy. And so what I'm hoping to do is just offer people who can't necessarily have access to a big keynote, or I do mainly work for big corporations, but individuals who are entrepreneurs. And so I've tried to broaden my base of who I can impact. But the key to the Digital Academy is having to pivot, right, Diane? I mean,
Right.
that's what all of us and every single one of us in this space have either seen the opportunity or it's been completely sabotaging and debilitating. I mean, did you have this platform that I'm on now before COVID?
I did a few years ago and I let it go, but it really was a bit of a learning curve starting again because everything changes. So, and it's been very exciting, I have to say. Yes.
Well, because, and I'm so proud of you and me. I say, when you're a millennial and the whole digital world is easy for you, for those of us that found tech a bit of a challenge, being able to do this. So what this reinforces for us, Diane, is the neuroplasticity of the adult brain. So I was listening to a very interesting interview with David Eagleman recently, and he's written a new book about neuroscience and the brain. And he says, we think just because we get older that we aren't as capable of learning as we were when you were younger. And he said, yes, certain things like language, interestingly enough, you have to learn at a certain age. I'm not talking about a new language, I'm talking about the ability to speak. And he gave the example of a terrible story about a child who was so badly neglected and never got exposed to language. So by 7, you can't teach language if you've never been exposed. But as adults, we have this incredible capacity to learn. And I think you and I are tribute to that. And it wasn't without its challenges, no doubt, for you or for me. And I did have a moment of paralysis of how am I actually going to learn this digital world? But every time I master something, there's a great sense of achievement.
Yeah, right. And that's a key to success in life, being a continuous learner. So I think we're both on board with that, and it's kept us afloat, obviously.
Yes, because really when March 12th hit, I had that moment of the rug was pulled from under me.
Sure. Yeah. You and many, many others. On a different topic, you are now writing your 4th book. Tell us about that.
So my first book was Own Your Network, which is all about networking and those skills. The second book was called Small Changes, Big Impact, Maximize Your Presence and Leverage the Power of Your Personal Brand. And that was with the awesome Kat Cole, who was the CEO of Focus Brands. She's just retired. And the third book I co-authored with Laurie Milner, and that's called Own Your Space. So that was all around personal space and confidence and owning your mental space, your mind space, owning your physical space, your virtual space. So now in the virtual world, I've partnered with someone who's in the digital space already, David Asana, and we're writing about rapid transformation in what we call the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I know many people right now about writing about rapid transformation. And I always tell authors, just because everyone else is writing about it, don't let that deter you, right? So the book is Ramplify, and it's around ramping up your existing business, but amplifying other opportunities. So in my small way, I've had to do that as a speaker. David has a company called Business Nitrogen, and he's done that in a much larger way. But what we've done with the book, and we're at the finishing line at this point, is really speaking to people who've had to rapidly transform in one way or another. And it remains fascinating, and I know it's the hot topic out there, but to actually interview these people and look at what they had in common in the moments of crisis. And what everybody who's been able to ramp up and amplify, rapidly transform in an uncertain world, there was something they all had in common. And that was the ability to overcome the fear, because everybody experienced fear, but somehow to not let that fear render them inert. And it sounds easy now, okay, we're 9 months into it, but anybody, one of the people we interview is a guy called Kirk Halpern, and he's got a company called Farmers and Fishermen, and all they did was supply the Atlanta restaurants. Well, March 12th happened and all the restaurants shut down. So what did he do? And he tells the story, his wife selling fish and meat that they were about to lose because nobody wanted it from her car. She just said to all her friends, just come over. All the restaurants have canceled their orders. Come over and get, supplies. And he saw this and he said, wow, there are all these people at home. And literally in 24 hours, he created a model that he could service people like you and me who are at home. So what did that take? What's that thought process, right? What did Diane Bogino do? What did Nadia Bilchik do? We went, okay, I've got 30 years in front of a television camera. I can use those skills to teach people how to go in front of their webcam. It seems obvious now, but if I had stayed in a state of paralysis, which I was for a moment, I wouldn't have thought logically and I wouldn't have thought creatively. So again, how do we get out of that state of paralysis where we can't be as creative as we need to be? And Diane, it's 9 months into this and I still see a lot of people, and I'm not saying I don't have moments, because I think we all do, but what I see is people who still are paralyzed. And then I see people who are able to, and I know the word of the day is pivot.
Right. Yes, absolutely. There have been some sad stories, and you just have to take that first step. You have to stay motivated and set some goals for yourself, for sure. On LinkedIn, I've noticed that you have both management and business consulting as services that you provide. So tell us a little bit about what you do for companies around that.
So I work with teams on presence, the concept of presence, presentation skills, influence, networking. So up until March 12th, the core business that I had was working with big Fortune 500 companies, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, and working with, as I say, individuals and teams on, if we are familiar with the pie. So Harvey Coleman spoke about performance, image, and exposure. We know that performance is critical, but image and exposure equally so. So I worked with teams, companies, keynotes, half-day workshops, full-day workshops on image. Am I coming across as confident, as competent, as credible? What does it take to build trust and rapport and interactions? And then exposure, the networking piece, so important, right? Are we understanding how to build long-term, mutually reciprocal relationships? So up until March 12th, did that, and still continue to do some one-on-one coaching with, high potential employees who want to elevate their overall executive presence. And then groups on, am I as persuasive and influential as I need to be? And Diane, last week, in fact, last Saturday at exactly this time, I was sitting in the same spot speaking to a group of interventional pulmonologists. Now, for the last 5 years, I have gone to Orlando, Florida, and I've spoken to interventional pulmonology fellows on the concept of personal brand. And that is that everything you do and say communicates, that you're a culmination of all your behavior. And we do this exercise where we say, how do you want to show up in the minds of your patients, your colleagues? And then what experience are you providing to do that? So I added this in virtually this time last week, where we looked at virtual communication. And in telemedicine, virtual communication is very important. And a lot of physicians don't necessarily have the skills. So that's what I've been doing, continue to do. Obviously, in the digital world, the advantage has been just that I did a program through a South African company. We had an audience of 1,000. So there are opportunities, but there's still challenges. And I do miss, don't you, the one-on-one in-person interaction?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's coming back, though. It's coming back. But I think that we'll still have some of this as well, because it's so convenient for us globally now. So
no question. And talking about backgrounds, I showed you that slide, but that background, but I'm now going to show you what I would look like if I was in my wonderful living room. So Diane, I just thought I do have to share this with you, because this is the room, this virtual background. A friend of mine said to me, wow, you've really done some fabulous work on your house.
And I love it. I love it. I'm moving in. I'm moving in.
Exactly.
You mentioned South Africa a moment ago. You have a master's in English and drama from the University of Cape Town, South Africa. Were you going to be an actress?
Oh, yes, Diane. I decided at, I think, 12, I'm probably even younger, that I was going to be an actress. And I was very lucky, because in South Africa, there was a booming film industry. So when I got out of school, I actually worked as an assistant to a casting director. And then I got cast in my first film, and it was with Gary Busey on the island of Skiathos in Greece. But Diane, what you don't know about me is that I've died in every film I've ever been in. So Gary Busey shot me, and literally on a boat, and we only had one take because the light was going down, and I only had one costume change. But at that time, and I'm not sure how they do it in movies now, but if you got shot, you'd feel the explosion. And as you felt the explosion, you had to fall backwards. So yes, active piracy, Gary Busey, I played the part of a Nicaraguan terrorist who gets shot. But I've also been strangled and, stabbed. Yes, that's something. What's one thing I don't know about you, Diane?
Well, I was in a movie too. It was called Something Special, but it wasn't. Okay. So.
And when was that?
Well, it was shot here in Atlanta, but it was It was about some kid that was both a boy and a girl. And I think it was, before its time. So,
Well, maybe, but now, Diane, I have a friend called Miles Neiman, and he is an agent. So if anybody wants to get hold of Miles, I think your acting career is not over. I think mine definitely is.
oh, I don't know about that. But I've noticed the messages that you post on your social media platforms. And, I don't care what somebody's political preference is, their religious preference, their lifestyle. That message is aimed toward everybody. So I would like to know how you came to develop those values that you have.
So the key to all social media postings is, what am I doing for you, right? And for me, the value of sharing information, knowledge is very important. And I don't value self-serving, gratuitous information. And I think maybe, I don't know if that's generational as a value, but I think before every post, certainly for me, I say to myself, is this post going to inform, entertain, add value? So even if it's obviously, I'm a businesswoman and I do want to continue working, but I think it's a myth if we think we can post, hello, I'm so-and-so, this is what I. So for my social media, I really try and say, is this going to be helpful to you? As you're doing right now, which is you're saying on my social media, I'm interviewing Nadia, what value guidance can she give my community? And I think we often forget, and certainly with social media, I think we have to be so careful that we are really offering something concrete, even if it's couched in. So I might post a quote and I might have Nadia speaks in bold at the bottom. I might even have a picture of myself, but the quote is going to be of value. One of my favorites recently that I posted was Nelson Mandela saying, I never lose, I either win or I learn. Well, if you're going through a tough time, doesn't that quote resonate with you? Doesn't that quote resonate with me, who since March 12th, I've tried so many different things. Some have worked, some haven't. But so my constant thing is this going to be helpful to me? Is it going to be helpful for you? If it's not, then put it in my family chat. Now, I will say my young daughter, whose name is Julia, has started a company called Stop, Think, Chew, and she does beautiful, delicious, she's a great person to interview, Diane, because she's a millennial doing amazing things, but I shamelessly post to her website because she has food delivery, and it's so interesting. I'm so happy to shamelessly post and advertise her, but I'm much more discerning when it comes to me, only because I'm very aware of individuals who come across as too self-serving. And I know it's a fine line because all of us, you and I, we do have to self-promote. There's no question.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I think we have to be comfortable promoting if we're promoting value and we're promoting a service and we're promoting I can help you. But I think all of us are very wary of the I without value to our audience.
Right, absolutely. Well, we got to get your daughter on here to promote her business. I'd love to do that.
And she's a young farmer. She's a young farmer chef, extraordinary, and I'm so proud of her. And funny enough, if I go to an event of hers, and of course I want to post it, I always have to ask permission. But it's stopthinkchew.com. It's just delicious, healthy, farm to table, some of it's vegan, and so I'm enjoying watching her progress.
I'm sure. That's exciting. Don't you have a brother and a sister who are both medical doctors as well?
Correct. So there are 4 children in my family. Both my brothers and my sister are all physicians. So lockdown happens. My trip to South Africa was canceled. And I thought, how can I do something wonderful for my mother who lives in Johannesburg, who I have not seen this year? So I thought, what better than to do an interview with my sister Tanya, who's a neurologist in Connecticut, my brother Anton, who's a cancer surgeon in Los Angeles, and my brother Brian, who's a cardiologist in Boston. So I was just experimenting with Zoom at that time. I didn't even have decent lights. I had a whole lot of lamps from around my house in front of me. And we recorded a Zoom and posted it everywhere on, a COVID update with Doctors Bilchik, Bilchik, and Bilchik. My mother was just delighted. So I've done that about once a month. And what more could you do for your mother than interview your siblings and have all the joy? And then, of course, because we put it on Facebook, then people would call her from all over the world now, because we've got friends that say, we saw your 4 children, and it gave her so much pleasure. So, Diane, you're right, we need to do another one. But I will tell you that all 3 of them are saying, and hopefully we make this interview an evergreen so it can always go. But whenever you are right now, we still have to be very cautious about COVID.
Right. So I guess show business was gory enough for you without.
Yes, I know, it's so interesting. They are all much more scientific, mathematical, although my younger brother and I once were in 12th night as twins. I played viola and he played Sebastian. So I think he could have had a budding career in acting, but he chose medicine. I didn't have a choice. I did not have the propensity. I don't think I would have succeeded in that.
Yeah, you also hosted a money show on CNN. So what financial advice might you give to entrepreneurs today?
Okay, so it was interesting. Thank you. The money show was inside Africa, and we did a show where we reported on all the currencies and what was happening all over the world. So I learned the different currencies all over Africa. So that was the money show. And what I learned about money, hosting a money show on Inside Africa, which was more of a reporting of what was going on than giving advice, is that money does make the world go around, doesn't it, Diane? And funnily enough, just through studying, and in South Africa, I once hosted a money show as well with a guy called Magnus Haystack. But all my advice is, especially to any young viewers, is start saving now, right? Compound interest is a wonderful thing.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So finally, Nadia, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, my website is very easy, nadiaspeaks.com. So I'd love to hear from anybody. Link in with me at Nadia Bilchik. But nadiaspeaks.com, even if you want to just arrange a moment just to chat and see how I can help you. But don't you love the social media, if used well, like this, is a wonderful thing. Social media, if you let it suck you in and compare other people's highlight reels to your everyday life, can be a very damaging thing.
That's true. Nadia, thank you so much. You've given the audience some great advice on virtual communications, and I hope they take advantage of your course because having time with you, that's priceless, as they say.
Well, Diane, I do want to tell everybody, Diane is the consummate professional, gracious person, and masterfully skilled.
My goodness, thank you. And thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a delight. Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Nadia Bilchik, global speaker, author, television personality, and communications consultant. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.